Well, here we are with the original Dizzy game, Dizzy 1, and I'm Philip.
And I'm Andrew.
And we were quite often known as, and still are, the Oliver Twins. So, we thought we'd go and play our own game 28 years after it was created.
So it was created in June 1987, and I don't know, we must have been 17 or 18 maybe at that time. People are quickly doing the maths to work out how old we are.
So, okay, without further ado, let's get on and see what this game's all about. So this was the very first time that Dizzy had been seen. It came off the back of a game, Ghost Hunters, which we'd written shortly before for Codemasters, which was very successful. And before that, there was Super Robin Hood, our first game for Codemasters, which did spectacularly well. That was on Amstrad. We'll do another video on those games. But this is Dizzy, and this was the start of a very successful series. Started in the UK. This is a Spectrum version. We wrote the original on Amstrad and Spectrum and released the two together, but they've carried on to become very successful on many other computers as well.
So here the idea was that you were in the ultimate cartoon adventure. We actually quite liked cartoons, and what we wanted to do is create a fun little character. It was very definitely a kids game. We could see that a lot of 12-year-olds had Spectrums at that time, and we thought we could make something that was very colourful. I mean, it had to be colourful. It was all bold colours, bold prime colours in those days on these computers, and on the Spectrum you've got all those attribute problems. So we just thought, well, we'll go with a cartoon theme, make it very strong with a nice friendly hero character that has objectives to do.
Only one item you can pick up and take to a place to solve a problem. In this case, I've just going to go over here and get some bird seed. If you look, it says free Acme bird seed. Now, Andrew said about us loving cartoons. Everybody knows that Acme is from the Roadrunner cartoons, and when Wile E. Coyote wants to defeat the Roadrunner, he quite often uses free bird seed. So that's exactly what we have here, and hopefully this birdie will take my bird seed. Take my bird seed.
And obviously the bird is deadly in this, and it becomes a pain. So the bird seed is obviously drugged or poisoned in some way. So it just gets rid of that, because you do find yourself walking backwards and forwards through the same places. So you're just making it a bit safer.
You'll notice that Dizzy is always quite animated, with his arms bobbing up and down. This was created so that you'd actually always see him regardless of what he stood on. So on a black background, bearing in mind the Spectrum only had 7 colours plus the black, you can see him quite clearly as being white. But the problem is that because of the way attributes work, and only being able to put 2 colours, a background and a foreground, into each character space, it does mean that when he walks in front of stuff, you kind of lose him. Now, if he wasn't animated, you would completely lose him. He'd be camouflaged by that tree. So we had the idea of making him very animated, with the idea that you'd always see where he was and you wouldn't lose him. Your eyes are attracted to sort of movement. So that was one thing. And then the other thing is, look at the way he tumbles. That's interesting. Why does he tumble? Of course, this led to him being called Dizzy. It wasn't the other way around. We actually had created a package called Panda Sprites for actually drawing all of our sprites for video games, and this was like 3 years earlier. And we'd put a feature in there which would rotate through any angle a graphic. So we'd put this little cartoon character in, and we'd tried out the angle rotations on him, and actually came up with a nice little turn. So in fact we decided to put this in and make him very unique.
Okay, but we ought to get on with the adventure at the moment and solving the puzzles. So there's various items that you will find, and so in this case his passage into the mines are blocked by a minecart. So if you pick up the flashing item, it's a mucky grease gun. Put down the grease gun next to the minecart, and that frees it up.
Now I can walk through here.
Okay, so now down into the mines.
There's a key over here. I'm going to go and get that key.
Now, at the time that we developed this, we'd been playing things like Manic Miner, Jet Set Willy, and those kind of games. So those early platform games, which were absolutely rock hard. If anyone goes back and plays them, they might well find out how hard they were. And we just wanted something which was a little bit more friendly, a bit more colourful, and told a bit of a story. And the gameplay was more in trying to solve the puzzles whilst there was some mild threat, as opposed to making pixel perfect jumps. Actually,
that was really rubbish.
Actually, the game was kind of widely criticised as being too easy, and actually you go back now and it is actually quite a difficult game. I mean, you have to be careful at this point because that rain is actually
I don't think I
deadly.
can get through that. I need a raincoat.
Yeah, so
okay, I'm going to use this mushroom and bounce. Boing.
Okay, so you go off and
I think the raincoat was down here.
okay, well the key is going to be useful later, but you can't take everything. It was later that we decided to give him a backpack and give him sort of multiple items.
Okay, there's an item over there, but I can't get to that at the moment. Let me just see what's down. Ah, well that's useful.
Okay, so is that
That's
a raincoat?
raincoat.
Right, okay, so we know what the raincoat's used for. We used to map these out all on paper, sort of scribble drawings, which people might have seen the images on the internet for, and then we'd draw little icon post-it notes and put them
Seriously, how am I
around
supposed to get through that?
so that we could sort of play it on paper and make sure that you could do all the puzzles in the right order, that it all made sense. He's going to get away with it, God knows how.
Not quite.
That was very
Okay,
close.
well, that cost me a life, that one.
Okay, so he's managed to get a ghost hunter's laser, and I think we can see a ghost there that is getting in your way. This was at the time where obviously the film Ghostbusters had come out. Well, actually, that was kind of our previous game. Ghost Hunters, and we thought, well, obviously you can't call something Ghostbusters, but actually the idea of haunted houses and setting adventure games in haunted houses with ghosts was pretty cool. So that was our previous game.
But how am I supposed to jump that spider? Seriously.
There's going to be something to kill that spider. There's no way you can get past it. There'll be something to kill it. Or
Really?
you go around a different way. There's no way you're going to jump that.
Okay, I'm going to just pop up here. I've got that raincoat, so let's just do this raincoat bit.
Okay, we are going to try and complete it, but having said that,
no, seriously, it's too hard.
Yeah, we honestly don't know how far we'll get before we run out. I can't remember what sort of time. If you knew what you were doing at the time, maybe an hour to complete. But we can't actually remember ourselves. It's funny actually because the number of times we'd meet people after sort of writing our various Dizzy games, and they'd go, "Oh yeah, I love your game. Oh, how do you get the so and so?" And we'd always just, pretty much always, just say, "We don't know." These games were written in about 6 weeks. We'd think of an item, we'd stick it in, and we'd move on. So during that time, we obviously play it a fair bit. But you're on to the next game, you're on to new puzzles, and you pretty much forget what the things are. And yeah, so we found it as difficult as anyone actually sort of going back to these things, especially now, actually, all these years later. So here we've entered the Crystal Mountains. We found that we wanted to make big adventure games, even though we only had like 32k of memory. But if you make all the graphics just random, you'd get lost within the map. So one of the things that we tried to make sure that we did is have very definite areas where we'd have 6 to... Oh, he's died. Are you going to try and give it another go?
Absolutely. I know a bit more what I'm doing now, so let's just do this again.
So we'd have very definite areas. So typically 6 to 8 screens was the idea, that you'd have a themed area. So this area is kind of the village. And then you'd have maybe 8 different areas, and so you could navigate your way around these maps. The last thing you want to do is feel completely lost. There's enough of that going on anyway. So you know where you're going this time.
I do. I don't have to do...
I'm wondering what the key is for. A graveyard key. Okay. It's giving you a bit of a clue.
There was I think... Okay, I did that last time, the Ghostbusters thing.
God knows how you managed to do that.
It cost me a life. I bet you thought I was going to get hit then.
Well, I thought, yeah. Okay, this looks really dodgy. I've got a feeling that the old poison birdseed would be a good thing here. Did you actually manage to pick it up?
Oh, man.
You picked it up as you died?
Did I?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You lost a life. Why don't you just go and kill the ghost and then it's done?
Oh, that's true. Good point. Yeah, sure. That's very sensible. Let's do a swap. Swap.
I don't think we had swapping in this game. I think that was Treasure Island. The next game, I think we had swapping.
Okay, fine. Play that some other time as well. Okay, he'll come up there and it will die in a second.
Or maybe not. A little bit random, just to catch you out.
There we go. Right. Okay. I have to say that the one thing that is actually hard to appreciate now with computers having so much memory is just how much we actually managed to squeeze into such a small amount of memory. And you mentioned just a minute ago 32K. We're talking bytes here, 32,000 bytes of memory. This adventure has something like 40 screens, I can't remember exactly. And all the sound and all the graphics and all the code.
Well, there's not that much sound, to be fair. Yeah, but it was how can we make a colourful adventure and tell a little story and create puzzles with so little memory. So we spent our time doing all sorts of tricks of how we could compress maps into the smallest possible space, and I do remember we were literally counting bytes. We did all sorts of tricks within the code if we could just save a few bytes. I actually used to love it. I used to sort of really get off on the idea of just being able to optimize and go back and write things and say, hey, I've written it with 2 less bytes of memory and it does exactly the same thing. But I guess
you literally did have to.
Yeah, I think I was quite geeky in those days, but I mean,
you're relatively geeky now, to be fair.
Well, cheers, mate. But it was about trying to get the most out of a computer, and one of the things about these games is that you had like your 32K of memory, and actually after you've taken away screen space, screen memory, and a few things.
It was a 48K Spectrum it ran on, so I think that's pretty much you have taken off the screen.
Oh, okay. So, but you got to a point where these games were written in about 6 weeks.
A bottle of dry ice.
And it was literally, you've run out of memory, you can't do anything more. If you want to put another puzzle in or another screen in, you're going to have to take something else out somewhere. And so you get to a finite point where you just have to move on. Whereas obviously, as soon as PlayStations and things came across, the memory just appeared infinite, and it's like, well, when do you stop? And sort of like a good piece of art, it's never perfect, it's never completed, it's kind of abandoned, or you just have to accept you're putting it out and you're moving on to the next thing. Whereas in these days, we literally were stopped by running out of memory, and there were a few times where we wanted to have 1 or 2 more puzzles, and we would just be scratching our heads on how on earth to save another literally 40 bytes. I do remember there, like we'd go, right, there's 40 bytes of memory, I reckon I can get 1 more puzzle in there, which is amazing that you'd get down to those sort of things.
Okay, I'm afraid I'm actually not doing too well, to be fair.
No,
I'm not actually sure.
Go! Oh, this is not looking good. Right. Do you remember this? Right, so that was obviously a trap. That's obviously going to collapse, and you're going to fall down the pit, and obviously the skeleton in the pit shows that someone else has been there before you and done exactly that and died. So clearly not good. Walk. Okay, everyone thinks that you have to jump across these logs, and obviously when he jumps he rolls, so that's just gonna spell trouble. You just want to walk between each one at the high points when the place you're walking is low. It's still a little bit challenging. And this, I remember, was trouble. I think you actually spring back to where you came from and then walk off. No? Yeah. No? Oh God.
I think
you...
Let's just go back up here.
Do a little jump.
Oh, see?
That's it. I have to say, some of this gameplay just sort of happened as we were making it. You put things down that look good, you try and play it and you go, oh, that's a bit tricky. Oh, well, we'll call that gameplay if that's a little bit of a tricky puzzle to work out how to get from one place to another without him rolling off the side all the time, which, yes, was something that everyone said was frustrating. We called it gameplay. And the idea was that it would take a few attempts for you to learn exactly where to jump from, but we weren't as brutal as other games, as I mentioned.
Oh man, that was the last life. Look, I actually think, well, we've kind of shown a good overview of what Dizzy was all about, but I don't think I want to crack on and try and get all the way back to there and then continue. Of course, games didn't have saves back then, so every time you lost your lives, it was right back to the start.
Ours was a game that you could actually play for a reasonable amount of time, although clearly Philip is struggling there on the keys and play now, but thankfully we can still do that and we can still work on our new games.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks and bye.
Goodbye.